All right. Okay. No, wait. No.
Yeah, no, you're about to do it. You just about got it. Why'd you stop?
Okay. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Froe Show. My name is Frank Mankin, and I'm joined by my effervescent, ever beautiful and moist co-host, Joe Murray.
I liked where that was going until...
If I'm completely honest with you, Joe, I lost my train of thought. I was about to say effervescent and ever radiant, but I'm pretty sure that's exactly what I said last week. No, I didn't want to repeat myself. I don't remember.
What did you say last week?
It doesn't really matter.
Okay.
I'm going to be honest. Anyway. Last week's episode is the first episode we've done that I haven't listened to so far. So I couldn't tell you. Either way, welcome. If you're new, this is the Froe Show where Joe and I talk about our interesting things in our respective industries, and sometimes we have interesting discussions, and sometimes we just chat, which is also nice. So, Joe, I actually had a really interesting experience this week, which I don't think I told you about.
Oh, yes?
Yes, it was very exciting.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to I'm gonna take my jumper off. We're 2 minutes in, I'm immediately regretting this. So I occasionally will get invited to, and this is because of like family connections and that sort of thing, and what my family does for work. We'll occasionally get invited to premieres and screenings and stuff for movies and TV shows.
Oh, wow.
Because at some point, which my family doesn't do anymore, but was involved in that industry. And so I think somewhere we're on some list of reporters and like media somewhere. So
That's
occasionally
cool.
we get invited to premieres and screenings and that sort of thing. But because we live in Australia and not in LA, we can never go to them. But because of the current world situation and everything that's going on, they've moved all of these screenings and premieres and stuff online.
Wow.
Because they're usually at like 5, 6 p.m. US time, that's like 10 a.m. Brisbane time. Huh. So I finally, after like 8 years of being invited to these things, got to attend one.
Wow.
And stupidly lucky, it was for one of my favorite TV shows, Euphoria. Which stars,
that is so cool.
Which stars Zendaya and Hunter Schafer, written and directed by Sam Levinson. The event that I attended was an hour and a half long. And it was a screening of the first episode of the show. So it was the very first episode, which I'd already seen, which wasn't super exciting. I'm happy to rewatch it. It was a good episode. And then it was like a half an hour Q&A panel, with Zendaya, Hunter Schafer, and Sam Levinson.
Wow.
Which is really, really, really cool.
Yeah.
It was also incredibly strange because...
Oh, really?
Well, the way it was done, I think, is that they were in a Zoom call, and that Zoom call was being live streamed to where we were watching it. And so we had like a chat that we could type in, and they would answer our questions and that sort of thing.
Yeah.
I had nothing productive to ask, so I didn't ask a question. I just kind of sat back and enjoyed the ride.
Yeah.
And you obviously get all the like pretentious questions of like, what was your inspiration for the role and that sort of shit. But like, and I didn't have anything more constructive or interesting on that front. But a couple interesting things came up. But the first thing that was really weird was because it was a Zoom call and they all had their video on. They're just in their houses.
Right.
So. It was very strange to see like Zendaya's house, like just her in her house. Like
were
it's
they
just
like dressed up though as well?
Yeah, like they were dressed nicely. Like it was casual, but it wasn't like super casual.
Yeah.
It was just how you would see them on the street, like if they knew they were going to be seen.
Oh, right.
But no, it was really strange just to be like, oh, that's like Zendaya's study. Like that's where she like reads her scripts and works and that sort of thing. Like it was just really, really, it's just a strange thing because you think of like these celebrities as this like upper echelon of like working class people.
Wow.
And you don't really think about them in their homes, and then just to see them in their like living room is really strange.
Yeah, that's really cool.
Yeah, that took me a second to adjust to.
Yeah.
But there were two interesting things that I took away from it. A lot of the questions were just the generic stuff that I mentioned before. And and stuff like, what drew you to this role and that sort of thing. And that's all like, you get the generic answers of like, oh, I've never done a role like this before, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, all right, whatever. Like, it's interesting, but it's always the same answer from every actor. It's like, I've never done any role like this before. It really spoke to me. I think of this character as my little sibling, blah, blah, blah. Like, all that sort of thing. You always get the same stuff.
Well, you've watched quite a few of those interviews.
I have. But one thing that was really interesting was Sam Levinson was talking about the opportunity for a season 2. And he was like, yes, season 2 has been greenlit and it's great. It's very exciting. He said it's basically all been written and we'll be filming end of this year and releasing in 2021. Which also, that's exclusive, has not been mentioned anywhere else, which is very interesting. Oh. So, exclusive little scoop for you. Yeah. Another exclusive little scoopy whoopy for you is that he was talking about how he wanted to be filming season 2 now and have it released at the end of this year. But obviously because of everything that's been happening, you can't get crews together, you can't shoot, it's just not a possibility. And so what he said was, which a lot of shows at the moment are reverting to doing Zoom-based episodes where it's like they're all distant from each other, but it's still like an episode in the universe, which works really well. Mythic Quest is a show that I follow. And they did an episode like that, which worked really, really well, and was really well done. But he basically said, I don't want to do that. I feel like it's kind of a cop-out move, is what he was like getting at, which totally fair, and I feel like that's just an artistic merit thing.
Yeah.
But what he said was, he's like, yeah, I've written 2 or 3 Christmas episodes, and he's going to shoot them at the end of this year, and just release them as like a bridging season between seasons 1 and 2. So like a season 1.5 sort of thing. That's cool. And that's how he'll keep kind of the audience happy and keep people working in their jobs and that sort of thing, which I found super interesting. I hadn't heard of any directors that were doing anything like that. So hearing that was really, really interesting.
Yeah. Yeah, it's really cool seeing how like some of, a really high level director working around COVID still.
Yeah.
Like, that's cool.
Yeah, and he was a really interesting guy. The other thing, this is the other thing I took out of it. It was a very, very short. It was only a half-hour panel, so it wasn't like super deep. And it was just getting good right at the end, as those things always do. Because you kind of like warm up and get comfortable. But what was really, really interesting, and I'd never really thought about before, was he was talking about why he prefers to do TV over movies. And he said that doing a TV show gives you so much more freedom than doing a movie does. It gives you more freedom than a movie would. And his example was like when you make a film, you have to have the script done basically once you start shooting. And then that script is what you do. Because you shoot stuff out of order, that script basically has to be the film. That's it. Full stop, end of story, that's your movie.
Yeah, right.
What he was saying was, and this is very minor spoilers for the last episode of Euphoria, but not super. It's like very, very minor. But because they shoot TV shows out of order, Euphoria is a 7-episode series. They started shooting at episode 4, worked their way back, and then worked their way forward. So did 4. I think he said they did 4, 3, 2, 1, and then 5, 6, 7.
Oh yeah.
Just so they start in like the middle of the story, and then you kind of have a pre-established relationship, and then you can work backwards and forwards from that, which I thought was a really interesting way to go about it.
Yeah.
But the interesting thing that he was talking about was that when they were shooting episode 4, he hadn't written episode 7 yet. So he'd only written episodes 1 through 6. He hadn't written the finale yet. And he was talking about the reason why he did that. And the reason why was that he really wanted to kind of see how the actors took on the roles, how they portrayed them, how they reacted with each other, how they got along, that sort of thing. Yeah. So he hadn't written episode 7 when they started shooting. And so once they finished shooting episode 4, he started writing episode 7. And every single script that he'd sent to HBO kept getting rejected. And they kept going, no, like cut this, cut that. We don't want to do that, that sort of thing. and he was getting really frustrated, and he said that he got into like a really really depressed state and just like couldn't really function.
Yeah.
And he was saying how he like got home after one of those meetings and was just laid in bed with his laptop and watched Love Island for like 20 hours straight. Just like lying in bed doing absolutely nothing.
Oh my goodness.
And then his producer came over to check up on him and was like, "Oh yeah, like how's the writing going, that sort of thing." And Sam Levinson's just sitting there in bed like watching Love Island. He's like, "Yeah, great." And he goes, "Oh, yeah, I've just been in bed watching Love Island for the past like 20 hours."
Yeah.
And his producer is like, "Oh yeah, tell me about it." And he's like, like what do you mean?"
What?
He goes, "Just like tell me what happened, like as if it's a story." He goes, "Okay."
Oh.
So he told him like front to back exactly how he was feeling, what he was doing, why he did it, that sort of thing. And then wrote episode 7 based on that experience. So in episode 7 of Euphoria, there's a massive part of it where Zendaya's character Rue becomes super depressed and spends 20 hours in bed just watching Love Island. And so he like worked his own story into that, which I found was super, super interesting. It works really, really well for the character.
Yeah.
But I found that really interesting that they were just like, yeah, okay, so we haven't written the end of this show. We're going to write it once I understand how the actors interact with each other.
Yeah. Wow, that's really cool. And that's awesome how he took his own story. I can actually think of an example of that in the music world. The guy who produced Sorry Not Sorry by Demi Lovato.
I don't know,
Do you know that song?
but sure. No, I don't.
Oak Felder's his name. So he pretty much like Demi came into his studio and like her agent and songwriter I think were there as well. And pretty much they came in and they're looking at this guy and it's pretty much like, okay, so what, let's make a song. And so Oak Felder starts messing around and ends up coming up with a cool beat and things like that. And then, they're Demi and the other guys are sort of getting into it, but they don't know what the song's going to be about yet. And this guy actually had a phone call or an argument with his wife that morning. And it was something like, it was something about, he was sorry about something, but not really sorry because it was like, he knew he was right sort of thing. Yeah. So he went into work still kind of mad at what had happened and turns around and is just like, hey, why don't we write a song called Sorry Not Sorry? And then
I would love to see him tell that story to his wife. Yeah. Hey, you know that Demi Lovato song that's on the Billboard Top 100?
Yeah. Yeah. But he's like released so many cool videos of how he wrote that song and everything.
That's interesting.
Any person who's interested in that, check out Sound on Sound magazine. They interviewed him. It's a 45-minute interview, and he just goes through the whole song, how he did it. Cool. But yeah,
with an interview like that, like a 45-minute interview talking about one song, like I know that there's obviously layers to a song, and I know that like we can talk about a movie for an hour and a half. Yeah. But a movie is like an hour 45 minutes to 2.5 hours. Yeah. A song is 3 minutes. Like, what do you talk about?
Well, so he just like went through everything that he did, and when you're producing like projects as big as that, there are hundreds of tracks.
Right. Like
you go on your multi-track digital workspace, and it's just huge. So he had, and that whole thing I think happened in like a day. Sort of put it all together in a day, and then you take a few days to mix it and polish it off, and then it's done.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's efficient work. That's insane.
Oh yeah, yeah. But that was like, he'd make the beat, and then he just added the heaps of layers. So it was kind of like I think Demi said that she wanted like a gospel sounding track. So he added heaps of vocal layers for to make like a gospel choir, but it was actually just like the 5 guys in the room that they re-recorded different parts,
right?
Things like that. There's just like
how Ed Sheeran layers his vocals.
Yeah, pretty much. Except there was a small group of them, and they would just do it, record different parts, different distances from the microphone, so it sounded like a massive group. And there's heaps of things you can talk about. You can talk about how he inspirations for coming up with the original beat, what he did past that, so layering. Then there's what he did to each sound after that, so all the editing techniques and like production techniques on each sound. So he would have compressed and EQ'd at probably my camera just went crazy. Probably each sound and each vocal take and things like that, and then you got reverb on all that and whatever else he did. So yeah, when you're producing, mixing, and mastering the whole thing, there's everything from the writing, getting the ideas, to writing it, to mixing it, and then it's just the whole thing. That's
really cool. Yeah, definitely go check that out. We'll chuck the link to that in the description for this episode.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Speaking of music and studio stuff.
Yes.
I should preface, whatever.
Actually,
before I go into
that
this
word?
I think it's preface.
I always thought it was preface.
Anyway, before we get into this story, I should explain that that in Australia restrictions are starting to lift and that sort of thing. So currently it's groups of 5 or 10 are allowed in small spaces, and as of tomorrow it's 20.
I think they changed it. They moved it forward today.
Well, as of right now, the second that this episode is released, that would be Monday at lunchtime. So as of right now, it's 20 people in an enclosed space in Australia. But that being said, after months of not seeing Joe, I finally saw Joe in person, which was lovely. Had a great time. But that meant that I finally got to see Joe's brand spanking new studio. Mm-hmm. And I've had some time to mull it over and think about it. And I have to say that hearing music that I've heard a million times for the first time on like monitors with like proper sound treatment, just like it was essentially a religious experience. Like I legitimately almost cried.
Yeah, it was really funny watching Frog.
It blew my mind. It felt like it was in my brain. Yeah. Like, you know how you like play a song in your head? It felt like that, but every single part of the song was there. And it's like, when you listen to a song normally, you like miss a bit of the high end, or you miss a bit of the low end, or like you can't really hear X harmony or whatever. You hear everything. Like everything. You hear all the work that these people have put into it. And you hear like every single key, it blew my mind. Like genuinely blew my mind. I felt like a kid in a candy shop. It was amazing.
Yeah, I was sitting on the couch behind Frank, and every 10 seconds he would spin around on the chair with like jaw dropped. It's like, I've heard this song so many times, but I've never heard that.
Yeah,
it was awesome.
And like it was actually one technical thing that I found really interesting is that with singing and stuff, I if someone shows me a harmony, I can get it, but I really struggle with that on the regular. Listening to those songs on monitor speakers, I can grab the harmony straight away. It was so weird. It was so weird. But yeah, no, like it was such a cool experience.
Yeah.
Would recommend. I'm gonna have to set one up in my shed.
Yeah, we should. No, now that as soon as I built this one, let's just like,
we do not have. We do have the space for that, but we're not going to do it.
But not the money.
No.
Maybe we can get a sponsor to build a studio at your shed.
Give Rode a call. Be like, hey, Rode.
I'm sure that conversation would go down great.
look, I can give it a go. I'd be like, yes, I would like to inquire about a sponsorship for the Froe Show. And like,
The what?
The what? How do you spell that? No. Yeah, no. I have great experience. Very much enjoyed. Would recommend. I have actually, no. I'm gonna start with this, and then we're gonna bring it back. I have sad news.
Oh, what?
I have actually very sad news. I think I already told you this a couple of weeks ago, but I do still want to share it on the podcast. It happened 9 days ago.
Oh, is this what I think it is? No, don't say it.
The beautiful,
Don't say it.
the beautiful pink shorts guy, Ken Nightingale, has died at the age of 92. I'm genuinely very upset by this. Like he had actually a very, very impressive career in sound. Oh
really?
Yeah,
I don't know. I didn't really follow.
I'm gonna
Shorts guy.
I'm gonna look him up. He did a bunch of stuff. He worked in. Oh wow, he's worked in 47. He has 47 credits to his name.
Wow.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff. Oh, he worked on Octopussy, the James Bond movie.
Yeah.
He worked on Supergirl. He worked on the Young Charlie Chaplin TV series.
Oh yeah.
He worked on a lot.
Wow.
He stopped working in 98.
Oh yeah. Wait, when did that James Bond movie come out?
Octopussy. That came out in 84.
Oh,
83, sorry. 83. No, that's Roger Moore.
Oh, right.
Yeah, that's Roger Moore Bond. That's the one. Octopussy is the one where he flies through the hangar.
Oh, that's right.
That's
we
the
talked
one,
about that, didn't we?
Yeah, I showed that clip in a couple episodes ago where you can see it driving through on the pole. But yeah, so Ken Nightingale passed away at the age of 92. So just wanted to give him a quick shout out, bit of an honor on the podcast, considering that we've talked about him a couple times on the show. So thought it's only fair to bring him up one last time, in memoriam. You know,
I'm sure we'll probably talk about him again. Knowing
Absolutely.
us in Star Wars.
Yes, he's genuinely an icon.
Yeah.
I want to bring up a discussion.
Uh-oh.
And it definitely has some layers on it, so it can go for a while, but it can also go very short. So it's up to you. So I want to talk about, and it's something that I've been thinking about a lot lately. So I'm gonna give some backstory to this. I finally, after like what is it, like 7 years, bought a PS4.
Oh yes.
For
I love where this is going.
And just because like there's so many PlayStation exclusives that I've been meaning to play, and end of life cycle is such a great time to get into it because it's like games are like $19 instead of 80.
Yeah.
So I've been playing a lot of like the story based PlayStation exclusives, which Sony is very well known for. Things like Uncharted and that sort of thing. And I kind of I've been thinking about it a lot. I kind of want to bring up the discussion of video games as an art form because it's something that's been discussed and debated for years and years and years. And I really only feel like in the past 5 years, people have started taking it seriously as an art form, and a way for real stories to be told. Because I feel like for the most part, people think about video games and they think about like, COD or like Battlefield or I don't know, like what like just like very generic games that are just like that don't really
Halo
have...
or something.
Yeah, exactly. Well, even Halo has some deeper stories in the later ones, but I feel like now we're kind of at a point where games like The Last of Us and games like Life is Strange, and I'm sure there's I know there are heaps more that I'm not, like God of War is another one, Horizon Zero Dawn. I'm just naming PlayStation ones because that's what I have in my head at the moment. But I feel like we're at a point now where people are actually starting to take video games seriously, in terms of both being able to tell stories effectively, being visually appealing, having every single time I say this word, cinematographic talent behind them, having audio talent, having voice actors, having well-written scripts and gameplay. Because the thing is, and this is what kind of opened my eyes to this world, and how impressive it really is for a game to be genuinely good. It's a culmination of every single art form, every single one. You've got sound, you've got visuals, you've got gameplay mechanics, you've got coding, you've got it just never ends. Like, whereas with a movie, you've got sound and visuals and script writing. With music, you've got sound, writing, and a bit of artwork for album covers. With games, you have every single department. Like if you look at the credits for a video game, they're like 2-3 times longer than a film. It's insane.
Yeah.
Because a lot of those, and a lot of the games now that are coming out are mocapped, which means they're physically filming all this stuff with like virtual cameras and mocap suits and that sort of thing. So they're essentially filming a 7 or 8 hour film and then building a game that has to be good, because otherwise you're not going to get through the 7 or 8 hours of work that they put in for the film. Like, it blows my mind.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, I don't know. The gaming industry, is crazy with particularly sound stuff. As you say, it's endless. And it's particularly hard as well because with movies and things like that, if a sound goes past, you have panning to put it sort of where it's meant to be. So you either pan it to the left or to the right, depending on where it is in shot. But with gaming, it's dependent on which way the player's looking.
Yeah, well, yeah. Or is it... It's more where the camera's facing, I think.
Yeah. Well, yeah. So if it's in, let's say Horizon, an open world game. Have you played it yet?
No, I don't actually own it yet.
Oh, okay. Well, anyway, the open world sort of thing. Let's say a rock sort of moves, or I don't know, maybe a horse runs by. Well, they're not actually horses, but in that game.
We'll say for the sake of discussion, it's a horse.
If you're looking straight at it, the sound's in front of you. But if you turn around, it's like if you quickly turn around as the player, it's suddenly behind you. So like the game makers are no longer putting sounds in a particular spot on screen. They actually have to put it in a particular spot in the world. And I actually don't know how that happens, but it's just sort of a whole nother world of sound design and all that, because it's
Foley to the max, like
and it's it's now dependent on what the player's doing. A lot of it anyway. With cutscenes, it's different. Obviously, it sort of becomes a film, so it's a bit easier, but. Yeah, a lot of it's, particularly with open world games, it completely is dependent on what the player is doing and which way they're facing and all that. So, yeah.
And the thing that gets me about sound in video games is that when it's done really well, that you'll never notice. Like a player won't stop and go, "Oh, that taxi went like to my left and I heard it over there." No, like if it's good, and you won't notice. It'll just be a part of the experience. But if it's bad, you notice immediately, like straight away.
Well, that's same with film as well.
Yeah, that is true.
Yeah. As soon as, if someone may be walking past and he's like, wow, those footsteps are so fake.
Yeah.
But you'll never know you won't notice if they look real or if they are real.
Well, I had that with, I like to make little short films sometimes because it's just fun. And it keeps me entertained. But I made a short film a little while ago, just like a minute long. And I finished editing it and I finished cutting it together. And I couldn't figure out why I didn't like it. I was like, why does this suck? And I was like going through my editing. I was like, no, these cuts are good. Like the cuts make sense. The shots are good. Like the story is fine for what it is. But something was wrong. And I realized that it was because like my Foley was just terrible. Like it was just bad. Yeah. And I had to go back and like re-record stuff and add stuff in. And I was like, oh, so your job is important, I guess.
Wow. Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, no, but very interesting.
Yeah.
Also, I find mocap stuff so interesting, because actors and directors always talk about it with film, and they say, "Oh yeah, like it's so difficult because like you're in costume and there's like a little bit of set around you, but everything else is green screen, so you don't really know what you're acting towards." But then you go to like mocap for video games, and they're literally wearing ping pong balls, and there's no set. They're climbing over like boxes that are also mocapped on a soundstage with no context to what they're doing, and they're delivering incredible performances.
Yeah.
And it's amazing. One, actually, kind of diverting a little bit, but one thing that's been really interesting to watch has been virtual reality and virtual reality cameras. And what people have been doing is they've discovered a way where you can track... It's very complicated, but the simple version is that you can track a camera in a 3D virtual space and record...
Right.
You can record, like you can play a scene in real time on a computer and then track it in real life with a camera as if it was the real thing. So it's like mocap, but to the extreme. So rather than doing the mocap and then rendering the animation on top of it, the animation is being rendered with the data from the mocap. So there's no need to like post-process and re-render it. It's like fully shot digitally in camera in massive air quotes.
Yeah, wow.
Which is wild.
Yeah.
And on that, The Mandalorian used something like that. Sort of. They used big LED screens actually. So actually this is definitely an interesting point. The Mandalorian, the show, actually had very little in the way of sets, like very little.
Oh, really?
Yeah, for the most part.
It looks really good though.
Yeah, and most of it is just shot on LED screens. So they have like I think it's like 10 by 10 meter space or 5 by 5 meter space. It's not big at all. And they just have, that's like their movement set. That's where they walk around and they actually act. And then the rest of the back wall, so there's a back wall and then there's two walls to the side and like a roof. And it's all one giant LED panel.
Wow.
Where they project the scene onto. And then they track a camera in real time in the space. And based on the position of the camera, the perspective of what's being projected on the screens changes to make it look realistic.
That is so cool.
Yeah.
My goodness.
Let me see if I can find a video of it.
Imagine if they like put, I don't know, if you like held the camera with you and then you walked, like how cool that would look.
Yeah, it's
moving around.
It's insane. I've got some stuff here. I found a video. I think Disney Plus has a show where they kind of go through the production of The Mandalorian. I'm trying to find one very specific shot that shows it off very nicely. But it's so cool to see how they actually track the background in real time.
Yeah, that's insane.
Because the background that's on the screens is physically bending and warping based on where the camera is. Okay, so it's the set. They change the size of the set depending on what they physically have to interact with. Is what I'm seeing here.
Right.
Oh, that's a good shot of what it actually looks like. So I'll just share that quickly.
Yeah.
With you. So this is what that set looks like. So you can see that.
Whoa.
You can see that this is all actually the ground. So they've set dressed this, and then that's all the LED panels in the back. That the camera that gets tracked with the camera. So you can see it. Let me find a section that kind of shows how it works. So the background just warps based on where the position of the camera. It's really impressive.
What the heck?
There's a shot at the start of this video that look, you can see it turning on. Like how it's just... And the advantage of doing it that way rather than... And this is they're using this technology instead of green screens. So the reason they do that is because... And the reason they went for this technology instead of using a physical green screen is so that they... because the Mandalorian's armor is so reflective, it'll just reflect what's actually on the screens rather than needing to worry about green screening or anything like that.
Right, because if it was a green screen, he'd be like outlined with green.
Which is like you can absolutely fix that in post. That's like green screening, keyframing, chroma keying 101.
Right.
But like you can see in this shot very specifically, you can see the background refreshing as the camera moves.
Oh yeah.
It's very, very cool.
Oh man. That is really cool.
Super cool.
I guess those reflections would be even more realistic then, because with the actual sort of world around him, I guess.
Yeah. But that's like following the world of virtual camera technology and virtual sound stages and stuff is very, very interesting.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I really, 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 really want to see that technique used a lot more because it looks just incredible.
Yeah.
Because straight out of camera, you have a usable shot is the thing. Like it's not...
Yeah.
It's still playing in the background. Hang on. There we go. So the way that they do that is they literally they'll create that set in their 3D rendering application of choice. And then they'll track their camera through motion tracking into the scene. And then, so on the computer, it'll be physically moving. Not physically. It'll be digitally moving through the space based on the position of the physical camera. And then the background on all the LEDs will refresh based on where the camera is in the physical space. So it'll distort and warp, or it'll shift or turn. There's actually, let me see where this section shows it off really nicely, actually, of how the screen works. So the holes, they can either have the entire screen on at once, or just do it in sections. So I'll show you this. So this kind of shows how it works. So you can see the camera moving around the virtual space and how it kind of illuminates the sections that it uses.
Yeah, right.
Super interesting technology. I love it. I really, really love it.
Yeah. Is there any way... I guess there's not really any way you can use that in sort of gaming, is there?
No, well, that's how I kind of got onto that in terms of like virtual cameras, because that's exactly what they do with video games, except they're using that digital camera, but they're just leaving it in the digital world. They're not bringing it back to the physical space and tracking it in real time.
Yeah.
They're like filming it and then using the data from the physical tracking to put on the digital camera in the scene once it's all animated.
Oh. My goodness, gaming is just a whole nother thing.
It's just it's a black hole of information and goodness. Virtual cameras are so interesting though. Like I really would love to just sit down with someone who knows so much more than I do about it, because it's just it's a void of information. And it's ever growing.
Yeah. Would that be something that's cheaper than maybe... Well, I guess it's probably cheaper than building sets.
It's cheaper. It's definitely cheaper than building sets. I don't think it's cheaper than a green screen. Although it might be cheaper than hiring the labor it needs to make a green screen look good.
Okay.
But I don't know.
So, do you reckon that... I know we spoke, I think, last week about what the industry is going to look like in 40 years.
I think that's definitely going to be the future. 100%. 100%. Okay. It's such a once there's sound stages that just have that implemented, it'll be so much more cost effective.
I wonder if they would do that with... surely they wouldn't do that with the ground. I suppose you wouldn't get the same effect
with ground.
If the screen was on the ground as well.
No, so that's why they actually have to set dress the floor as well. Like you can see that in those clips. I'll link this video in the description as well for the audio listeners, so you can check it out. But yeah, so that's why they have to set dress the floor and stuff as well, because if you pan down, it's just going to be like an empty floor.
Yeah. Yeah, right.
Yeah. But if you want to get into a niche market of filmmaking, that's definitely one to look into, because it's so new in the film world that there's very few jobs. There's a high demand for it and very few people that can do it, because you need to know how to operate a camera. You need to know how to digitally render stuff. You need to be a 3D animator as well. It just takes it takes a very specific skill set. And there's absolutely people with that skill set. And those people are going to be making big bucks in the next couple of years, I think.
Yeah. Wow.
So, if you're interested in that, cheers to you.
Get on it. Yeah, man.
Yeah. Do you have anything else you want to talk about today?
Well, I should have plugged this in before, but
okay.
When you were in the studio,
yes. Sorry, I moved straight along from that.
No, that's great though. One of the things you did was you held your hand up in front of the speaker.
Yes.
Because the driver on it was going insane. We had it pumped up quite loud for a lot of it.
We were vibing, straight vibing.
Yeah, it was
got
great.
home, my ears were ringing. It was great.
Woo. But yeah, and you made an interesting comment. You're like, oh, now I understand how deaf people hear this.
Yeah, well, the context, I rarely, if the only time I listen to music on speakers is in my car, and obviously I'm busy with a steering wheel. So I've never actually looked at or felt a speaker while it's playing music. When it was playing, I could see that it was vibrating, and so I put my hand on it, and I just generally made the observation that I immediately understood how deaf people enjoy music at that point, because you can feel that it's music. It's really strange.
Yeah, actually, this kind of a nice thing to lead into how sound works with just a driver moving backwards and forwards. Because you're kind of like, how can I hear this song with it's just a circle going, backwards and forwards.
It's going wop, wop, wop.
Yeah, so it's when it kind of pops out, it increases the air pressure just in front of it, so it kind of creates that wave, and then when it goes back, there's suddenly a lower pressure of air in the gap that it's left, and that's the sound wave. So in the lower pressure,
right.
If you think of a sound wave, it's like
it's a wibbly wobbly,
wibbly line. The lower pressure is when it's down low, and then when it gets to a higher pressure, it's back up. And so that's pretty much what the driver's doing. It's just moving backwards and forwards according to the squiggly line. So yeah. Anyway, back to the hearing thing.
Yes.
That led me into a little bit of research into, hearing aids. And I guess I didn't do a whole lot of research, but one of the more interesting things is cochlear implants, and how those type of hearing aids work. So what they are is they go into surgery and they get a little implant just behind their ear on their cochlea.
Cochlea?
That's how you say it. Cochlea.
I think it's cochlea or cochlea. Someone correct us.
Yeah. Anyway, so it gets put behind your ear, and it's magnetic. You know how you see some people with hearing aids, how it's behind their ear, and then there's something stuck to the back of their head. So that's what that is. That's the implant inside their head connecting to the magnet on the outside. And the implants, connected up to the cochlea. So quick ear anatomy. You've got your ear and then the ear canal, and it goes to your eardrum. And the eardrum is like the diaphragm on a microphone, or it's like the opposite to a driver on a speaker. So it vibrates according to the air pressure that hits it. Yeah. Pretty much. And then that you have three bones called the ossicles that move according to that. And the last bone sort of works as a hammer, and it hits the fluid in the cochlea. So the cochlea is a little bone filled with fluid, and it vibrates the water. So how you've seen those videos where you play music in water and it just goes nuts. that's pretty much what's going on in your ear.
Gross, but carry on.
And then there's little hairs in hairs. They're tiny. So
like fibers.
Yeah. But they're called hairs in the cochlea, and they pick up those vibrations and they send pretty much then electric signals. What's the word? Nerve stuff.
Neuronological.
Yeah, signals. You know what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
They sort of fire and then send signals to your brain, and then your brain works that all out, and that's how you hear. So cochlear implants just bypass the eardrum and the
neurons
bone.
Communicate with each other by sending chemical and electrical signals.
Electrical signals.
Yeah.
That's what the hairs do. Send it to your brain.
Yeah.
And your brain works the rest out. Cochlear implant connects to the cochlea and essentially bypasses the eardrum and then the three bones.
Right.
And the
cochlear implant connects to the cochlear bone.
Maybe we shouldn't make a song about it. And so the hearing aid that's on the outside pretty much processes the sound, sends signals to that implant, and then the implant sends signals to the hairs in the cochlea. So it sort of bypasses everything before.
So it replaces the little hammer bones and stuff.
Yeah, it replaces your eardrum, the bones, and pretty much
wild.
the cochlea as well. So it sort of talks straight to the hairs, and then that.
Right. So it's basically
it's
sending the signal basically straight to your brain, completely diverting your ear.
Yeah. So
wow.
That procedure and that method of hearing aids doesn't work for everyone, but yeah, that's one way that it works.
And from my very limited knowledge of hearing aids and that sort of thing, is that it's also not. It doesn't sound like sound. Like it does sound like sound, but it's very muffled or like.
Okay.
It sounds very electrical, is from what I understand. Like it does sound like electrical signals.
Yeah. Okay.
But you can make out speech and that sort of thing. So I would definitely be interested to know what that actually sounds like.
Yeah, I'm sure there's people that have tried to mock it up on YouTube and things like that.
Yeah, surely.
But yeah,
interesting.
So that's a
really
implant.
that's crazy that technology can just bypass your body. Like that it's just it just tells your brain that okay, this is I know you're not physically hearing this, but this is what you're hearing, okay?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Wild.
Someone won't have ears soon. I don't know. It would just be like all the cyborg.
In
things.
40 years, the human industry will be no ears.
No ears.
No ears, no eyes. Only cameras and booms.
And yeah. Oh man.
Oh, that's crazy.
But, yeah.
All right. Do we want to wrap it up then? If
I
that's.
forgot what I was gonna talk about next.
Did you have? You have another thing.
I had something, but now I forgot.
Oh no.
Oh well, I'll remember it for next week. I do have the quote for the week.
Oh yeah, sorry, I
quote.
almost skipped your Foldy quote. All right, I'm ready. I'm ready.
Come on, man.
I'm excited. I'm getting excited for these now after last week's.
This isn't as I guess fun as last week's.
So no bludgeoning.
No. I still love that putting anything into a cooked whole chicken and then beating it.
Do you think they shake it just like?
I hope they don't. But no, you literally beating a cooked chicken with stuff in it.
That was your one from last week. All right, I'm ready.
Yes, this one is by Tim Clark.
All right,
and
good on
it's
you, Tim.
Actually, how he got the sound of bats, like flying bats, not a baseball bat.
So, could you not just record bats?
You could, but if you don't live near bats, then
everywhere has a zoo.
Yeah, but
no, okay, I get your point. Carry on.
Well, if you okay, so let's say it's the scene where two people are walking into a cave.
Batman walks into his bat cave.
And bats fly, yeah. They go crazy. And so if you were there, let's say we went to a zoo and I tried to record the bats, you'd probably just hear a lot of squawking and all that sort of stuff, right? But when the bats are flying past you that close and scratching you and all that,
Right.
you'd hear a lot of flapping.
Yeah, right.
So, you know, by all means, he probably recorded both and then mushed them together. That's, again, like the whole movie and audio world is just, there's probably 12 sounds making the one, you know, click. It's kind of crazy. But yeah, so for flying bats, I used an umbrella opening and closing rapidly for the sound of flying bats one time. Turned out great. I think I had to filter out some of the low frequency material though.
That's wild.
So he just got a umbrella and went.
I would never
crazy.
never have thought of that. Not in a million years.
Yeah, that's why I love Foley though.
Do you think he made the bat noises by just going?
Honestly, wouldn't surprise me.
Chuck a couple filters on it, you're sweet. Good to go.
Yes. Oh, man.
All right. On that note, let's wrap it up. All right. Thank you so much for listening. If you listen to the audio version and you want to see some funky stuff, also the videos that I shared about the virtual sets and stuff, check out the Froe Show on YouTube. You can find all of the episodes in video format there. We would greatly appreciate it if you went and check that out. Otherwise, if you like the episode, rate it, follow on your podcast app of choice. There's new episodes every Monday at 12 p.m. Ready for you on your lunch break. Otherwise, Joe, do you have any parting words?
Nope. Catch you next week.
Never do. All right.
Yeah.
I ask every week, and I always know what the answer's going to be.
Well, Neo, I'm going to surprise you next week, and I'll have some.
All right. I'll come up with a better intro next week then. Yeah, cool. All right. We'll see you all guys. I can't talk. We'll see you all next week. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.